today we are going to be talking about nutrition in regards to how that's impacting our relationship. So I do want you to give me a little bit about your background, just like a snippet here, and like what nutrition has done for you.
Mhm.
And I'm going to be asking you some really pointed questions around like what happens if we don't eat enough? What are some misconceptions around just like eating in general and the connection to the quality of our life?
Yeah.
So thinking about nutrition as a holistic piece, and like if you don't fuel the machine, what happens to the machine? And like what are the consequences of when you don't fuel the machine or when you don't fuel it properly, you don't fuel it enough, you're not getting the proper nutrition. Like, are you hitting 20,000 or 20,000, 2,000 calories, but your 2,000 calories are like protein bars and Quest chips and that burrito that you don't know what's in it and like all these other things. So there's that. And also the power of tracking.
hmm Yeah.
Not obsession,
Yeah.
but the power of what gets tracked, what gets measured, gets improved.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay. So I
Yeah.
think I want to start with like, can you just give us a little bit of backstory? Like, who are you? What do you do? Why do you do what you do?
Yeah.
And what got you here? Why should we listen to you?
Yeah. I love that. So I'm Coach Dani, as many know me as. And I've been nutrition coaching for the last 5 years. And the reason I got into it was there's a few things. So my history with my health has been my view from what I've seen my mom do, my grandparents do, my aunts, and everyone. Like all of the women in my life have been chronic dieters or like yo-yo dieting, whatever you want to call it, right? But like they thought to like lose weight or to be healthy, they had to go on like the new diet, the thing that was like flashy and exciting, and like that's what helped them lose weight for short term, and then they'd gain it all back. And I'd just be like, is that what being a woman is? Like, Um, so when I started growing up and like realizing like, man, like something feels off about that. Like that doesn't feel like productive. And I ended up hiring a coach. Actually, I ended up hiring a couple coaches. My first one was very like restrictive, obsessive, like cheat meals were like glorified, like you obsessed over those things. And then I was like, yeah, no, like lost a lot of weight, unhealthy, not a good mindset around food. And I was like, there's got to be another way. Found another coach that was like, tracking your macros, food freedom, like still being very aware of what your food is made up of, not just being like, I'll eat anything I want to like if it fits your macros, right? Because that can be an unhealthy way of viewing it too. But like saying like, okay, like how can I actually truly feel good? Like that's the goal. Like I want to feel strong. I want to feel energized. Like that was the goal. And I was like, okay, how can I take care of myself and not be like questioning everything? And like that's kind of what sparked me going, like light bulb moment. I figured out through another coach how to do this for myself. And I was like, I see this in so many people in my life, family, right? Friends. And I'm like, I think I could help people with this. I think I could do that. And so I took, magically enough, COVID got me into like that stepping stone of like, I have time to take my nutrition certification. So I did it. And I was like, I have all this time at home. So why not just go for it? And yeah, it was like one of those times. It was just like kind of timing was everything. I was like, okay, now's the time to do it. So kind of little backstory in terms of how I got to here today.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I feel like so many people took that opportunity during COVID to just reevaluate everything that was going on in their life. And, because that's when I got started, basically. It was right around that time where I was like, things are not as they seem. Things are, they don't have to be the way that they've been forever. I think COVID really taught us that. And it was a huge shift for a lot of the clients that I talked to as well. They realized right around that time that life could be different than it is right at this moment because the entire world shut down and everything continued. Life still went on, but it was totally different than we had all been taught.
Yeah.
So like I really hear the whole like my parents, everybody around me grew up thinking that they had to be on a diet, thinking it was low fat and like sugar free or diet everything.
Yeah.
And it did not seem to be working.
Yeah.
And so it really does give you like this, well, if it's not working, then why are we still doing it? Are we just holding out hope that one of these days, like I'm going to start losing weight using all these suggestions that society at large is being fed on a very large scale? And we're
Totally.
like, that's not how it works. And it happens in relationships too. I was
Mhm.
literally talking to one of my clients just now, and she's like, well, society tells me I have to be this kind of woman. Society tells me I have to do this. And I said, you do know that this means you're trusting society to tell you what to do. Do you trust society at large? She's
Yeah.
like, well, no. I said, okay, well, that's exactly what you've been doing. You've
Yeah.
been telling society that they have authority over how you show up in your marriage.
Yeah.
So I think that goes right in line with how we have let society tell us what
Hmm.
is healthy and what is not in our nutrition, in what we do and how we eat, how we exercise, what is good, what is not good, and how we need to be showing up. So that leads me to, I think I'm coming into this a little bit early, but like, what are some of those common misconceptions that you see people like being fed and not understanding our misconceptions?
Yeah, I think it's so important to look at kind of like you said, like what society expects of us, especially as women, right? Women have this heavy burden to look a certain way, act a certain way, all of these things. And so, especially when it comes to our health and wellness and with nutrition, it's like, okay, there's like, we've all seen that list of like foods to avoid, which can be very, it can be toxic in a way, right? Like we want to look at more of like the list of foods we can include versus the list of things we want to avoid. And like, yeah, there's going to be foods that we do want to maybe stay away from, but if we start to create things, our decisions based on fear, it doesn't breed confidence in ourselves, right? So it's like if we're trying to build our confidence in our lives and our relationships, then if we start at the very basic thing of like the one need that we truly need, which is to fuel our body, and we're not confident in that's and which society kind of creates this like fear. It's like you don't, they're pretty much telling you you don't need to know what to do, just like don't do this and don't do that. It's like, and we're just stuck going, okay, now what? Like then what do we do? They're like, well, take these pills or take this, and it's like it's just all of these things that kind of keep you in the lack of confidence, because like making choices about your food, it's like that's like the number one thing. It's like that's the first thing you start to become confident with is like, when someone goes to university or college or whatever, the first thing that people say is like, oh, how are you going to cook for yourself? Like that's like one of the big things is like, does your kid know how to cook? Like that's like a big deal. Like learning how to feed yourself is a huge thing to learn and to understand. And if we don't feel confident in that, then yeah, how do we feel confident in anywhere else? So, big misconceptions too for women are like, eat less, give your body less. Like, how can you make yourself smaller? Those are such big things that we're taught. Like, the amount of clients I talk to that say, I ask them, I'm like, so roughly how much do you think you're eating a day? They're like, probably 1,200 calories. I'm like, and that number so often comes up, 1,200 calories. And I'm like, who's the person I need to track down and say, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Um, but ultimately, it's like this belief that we deserve less, that we need to be less, and that we need to. And I think a lot of the movement right now is like taking up more space and like trying to, and I think that means more, we need to do that more for ourselves than to like for others, right? So like focusing on what we do for ourselves is way more important than what that looks like outwardly. Like if you look a certain way, that's no one's business. It's like how can we feel like we look in the mirror, say like, yeah, I feel like I'm me again, or I feel like I'm me for once, right? Like I think there's a lot of numbers out there that we focus on versus, and it's hard to track like energy and, and how we feel, but that's like the most important thing and that we're kind of missing out on.
Yeah. There was so many gems in there. Like you guys listening, I hope you re-listen to a lot of that because so many gems. I think you're absolutely right that we start to learn how to trust ourselves when we can begin to understand how to fuel our body. We put our body into fight or flight, into survival mode when we aren't getting enough food. This is something that I didn't realize for a very long time was that my survival mode, which I know all of you understand and you've heard before, everybody's like, "Oh, I'm in survival mode because I don't have time for this or my partner is doing this or blah blah blah." Like your body probably was already in survival mode because you're not feeding yourself properly. Nutrition is so underappreciated when it comes to the impact it has on your relationship because you don't trust yourself because your body's like, oh, you're not giving me enough food. So I don't know when I'm going to get my next meal. I don't know when I'm going to be able to feel full and get the nutrition and the nutrients that I need. So like I don't even know what to do. So you can't trust yourself. And when you can't trust yourself, you start outsourcing that trust. You start asking someone else to tell you that life is okay because you don't know for yourself, because you're not feeding your body. And obviously there's a lot of nuance to this, but nutrition is a huge piece of it. And you might say to yourself, oh, well, I'm eating, 1600 calories or I'm eating 1800 calories a day. But what does that consist of? Are those calories nutrient dense? You can be eating 1800 empty calories a day and just check a box and say, "Oh, but I'm eating." What are you eating? Your body needs certain things, and I think you're very correct to go in the direction of, you know, shying away from fear-based situations, thinking about like, "Oh, well, I can't have that. I can't have that. I can't have that." It's like when you're focused on what you can't have, then you're ignoring what you can. You're going to get more of what you can't have. When you shift the focus onto what you can have, what you do want, okay? Maybe not like craving wise, but what you need to give your body and therefore what you want, you're putting yourself in a seat of power. You're putting yourself as the author of your situation. You are giving yourself a vote of confidence when you shift your behavior away from fear and toward opportunity,
Yeah.
toward what it is that can actually fuel your body. So when we talk about nutrition as fuel, when we talk about getting these things into our body and how it impacts our relationship, like can you speak to what not getting these things can do to the body? Like, what are the symptoms of not having proper nutrition, of not having that confidence? Just as a person, what are the symptoms that show up when you're not feeding the machine?
Yeah, so there's so many things that we kind of push off to the side. We'll say, like if we're exhausted all the time, we have like no energy. We see like crashes in the afternoon that like that's like a common thing that people go like, "Oh, it's like 3 p.m. I crash hard. Like I need that coffee. I need that something." And it's like or they go, "I just had a bad sleep last night. I don't have energy because I slept wrong." Or and it's like but they're not eating breakfast. They're not having fats and proteins at every meal. They're not giving their body actual sustenance throughout the day, and they're blaming it on other things because they just don't have the knowledge. They don't have the awareness yet. And when we look at energy being super powerful, like showing up in relationships, it's like, okay, if you feel like you're snapping at your partner often, or you're like, you just don't have the energy to even show up and be like, okay, yeah, let's go on a date night, or, let's have sex. Like you don't have the energy to do all those things that are maybe really important to you and your partner, and you're just able to do those things. And it doesn't feel like nutrition's that directly linked to those things, but it really is. You don't fuel yourself, you don't have the energy, then where does your relationship lie? There's resentment. You have those mood swings of like, oh, they don't want me anymore. It's like, but you're just not energizing your body. And that just like has a trickle effect into everything else, right? And so that also includes like Like you don't have the energy, you don't want to move your body. And then when you don't want to move your body, even your sex drive goes down, your confidence and the way you look goes down. So you're less likely to be like, yeah, I'm going to put myself out there, whether it's a new partner, old partner, all of those things. Like, again, tying back to that confidence piece, the energy, everything, like it just is also connected to how we start to show up for ourselves in fueling our bodies, giving our body food consistently throughout the day. So, chronic meal skippers, those are the people who are going, I just can't. I just can't. At the end of the day, that's it, right? And you want to be able to say, like, oh, I can show up, not just for myself, but for my partner, for my relationship, or for my kids. Like those relationships that we have that are important to us start to get stronger as we start to give more to ourselves, and like nutrition being like so key in that. Yeah.
I love that. And it brings to mind, my goodness, I swear we could sit here for hours and just talk about this for real. So maybe we'll have another one that's like specific and it's like super like
Totally.
like narrowed into a certain topic, because this is so key for what I do for my ladies too. But this brings to mind the fact that when we are skipping meals, when we are thinking about everyone else first, there's a resentment that builds.
Yeah.
And I know you ladies can understand this. Okay. I know that you think to yourself, like, oh, I've got to put myself second, or I'm being told that I have to put myself second, or I'm expected to put myself second because everybody else comes first. This is not true. Okay. In fact, when you put yourself second, everyone around you suffers.
Yeah.
Every single person around you suffers. And I don't think people are making that connection, that they say to themselves like, oh, well, I don't have time to eat. I have to put everybody else before myself. Okay, cool. But who is that self that now your children are getting, that your husband is getting, that your coworkers are getting? Are they getting your best you?
Yeah.
Probably not, because you decided that fueling your body wasn't important enough. So
Mhm.
you are actually doing everyone around you a disservice by not eating properly, by not taking care of yourself properly, by making it so that you aren't trusting yourself, that you aren't confident. You think you're doing good by putting everyone else in front of you, but you're actually doing everyone a disservice, and it's
And
not
yourself,
good.
right?
What's
Yeah.
that?
And yourself too, right? Like at the end of the day, you go like, where, like, you just always feel like, oh man, like, because then you become like your body is no longer fueled. You might be like, and then you might gain weight because you're not properly taking care of yourself. And then it's like a vicious cycle, right? Of like, you don't take care of yourself, you let something slip, and then you get to the other side and be like, how have I gotten to this place? And then, yeah, the resentment of like, well, like, why am I not where I feel happy, or why is my partner not happy? Why does it feel like everything around me is just like blown up, right? It's like starting with you is like the key for sure.
Yeah. And I want to go back to another point that you made, that, as women, where it feels like we're always being told to be smaller, feels
Hmm.
like we're always being told to not take up as much space. And I think that resonates in relationships overall. Like, we don't feel as if we should take up space, whether it's physical space or whether it's mental space. We're afraid to ask for things. We're afraid to be more than we are right now. But then this movement, this shift has kind of started where we want to take up more space, but in taking up more space, it's almost as if we have to take space away from someone else.
Right.
Okay? Like, this is an interesting concept. So like, as we get bigger, like as we take up more space, I think there's a fear around taking away from other people. And I think there's also the idea that like there's not enough space to go around. So in order for me to get bigger, I have to take away from you. I have to bring you down and like throw rocks to make myself bigger. And I think there's like a couple different camps of people in that regard. So it's usually one or the other. But I want to be very clear that you taking up more space doesn't mean that you have to make someone else the enemy. Somebody else wasn't taking your space away from you. You were simply relinquishing the space and blaming somebody else for it in that way. And if that's the case, then nobody took your space from you. Nobody was trying to make you smaller. You simply allowed it to happen. Again, this is like I was telling one of my clients, like you're allowing society to tell you who you are. You're allowing society to be the authority in your life. You're allowing society to tell you that you need to be skinnier, that you should be eating 1,200 calories a day. And does that track with you? Does that make sense with you? And as thinking women, we can no longer outsource those types of things to anyone but ourselves. We have to turn on our critical thinking. We have to be the one pushing for our own good. No one else cares about you the way that you need to care about you. And it's
Cool.
nobody else's responsibility either. You have to care for yourself. You have to make sure you're getting enough sleep. You have to make sure you're getting enough food. You have to make sure you're taking care of your personal care. You have to make sure that you're getting out into nature. It's you are your responsibility. And when you say like, oh, well, my partner this or my partner that, or you're waiting for somebody else to do it for you, that is your first mistake.
Yeah.
And I do believe that this is the maturing process. I feel as if a very large amount of people, millennials don't kill me because I'm also a millennial. I'm an elder millennial, so show some respect. But but I feel as if, I know, right? I feel as if the millennial generation has taken a lot longer to hit that maturing stage where like we're waiting for somebody else to take care of it for us because maybe our parents did. Okay. Or we're like, we don't want the responsibility to take care of ourselves and now we're all floundering. But like this is part of the maturing process is to understand that nobody is going to take care of you but you. And it's nobody else's responsibility. And to a degree, like logically, you might know that.
Yeah.
But when you genuinely look at parts of your life, like, oh, I'm not eating 3 meals a day. Were you waiting for somebody to make them for you? Were you waiting for somebody to remind you, like, tap, 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 you got to eat right now? Because you unconsciously are. Like, nobody's going to remind you. So you have to take that responsibility on for yourself. Is that something that you're noticing in your clients or like, am I just nuts?
Yeah, no, it's like I think a lot of the time too is like you get so locked into habits that like oh like this is just how life goes, but you don't it's really hard for some people to really check in and see where exactly where they're at without like actually objectively looking at everything laid out, right? So when you're just kind of like going day to day and you're like, okay, yeah, I feel like crap, like my relationship isn't where I want it to be, like, and you're in a state of just kind of like on almost autopilot. Some people are just unaware. They just don't even realize, right? They're just like they don't stop to like check in and say, oh, like I'm actually like not doing the things that I need to do. Like, and those like internal reminders are gone because they've done it for so long. So it's like starting to rewire your habits and your brain to be like, I need to bring these things back in. And it's going to be hard. Those things are hard to do because you're stuck in a loop a little bit, right? It's hard to like break that loop and be like, throw something in there. But like, if you're realizing that your body feels a certain way, your mind isn't, you're not showing up in the things that you want to show up for, your relationships, your work, everything, then you have to stop. You have to check in. You have to bring awareness in, or else how do you make change with without being aware? Like if you're just like, okay, like I'm gonna go paint a house and I'm just gonna go put a paint up. Like you might be painting it the same color. Like if you don't know what the house color is already, like that's such a weird analogy. But like if you go in to paint a house, you're like, oh, I'm gonna go change the color, but you don't know what the original paint color is. Like you can paint it the same color. So like having some awareness about where you're starting at and where you're at right now and where you can start to add in is going to be really key into helping those habits come back, helping you be more aware, adding that third meal in, right? Like that's where we start to really see our shortfalls, or like the moments where we're like not giving to ourselves, say, oh, yeah, I'm really not doing the things that I need to do for myself, and like bringing that awareness piece back in can really start to change it all.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, I would love to hear you expand on that a little bit. So, talking about awareness and the fact that we don't have a ton of awareness around this particular thing. So, how do you help your clients understand that? How do you help them open their eyes to this awareness that, like, oh, wait, I'm not actually doing what I need to do? What kickstarts that for them?
Yeah, so I actually get my clients to track their food. And it's, there's so many apps out there. There's free apps. You don't have to buy an app that's like fancy and has all these whistles and bells on it. You don't have to do that. As long as you can start tracking your food with the idea of saying, I'm curious about where I'm at right now, and I'm going to do this judgment free. Like, I'm not doing this to say, look at all the bad things I'm doing. We can definitely start to see, like, okay, what's serving us, what's not serving us. But we really want to look at tracking as a tool to say, I'm about to learn a lot about myself right now, and I'm going to be able to see exactly where I'm at. I'm not going to just have like a rough idea. Sometimes when we just kind of like, so like, yeah, like I'm not eating enough. Okay. Like, so what is that information telling you? Like, it has like one small data point, not eating enough. Okay. So, like, exactly where is that? How do you add more to that? How do you, like, what is actually that made up of? So, when we can track it and visually see how much protein we're having, how many carbs, how many fats, like, and actually seeing the data and realizing, like, okay, if I want to feel better in my skin, if I want to feel more energized, for me specifically, and everything's customized to each client, right? So like depending on where they're at, what their weight is, height, like everything plays a role in terms of where they need to start. But we don't know where to start if we don't know where they're at. So really that I call it an assessment. So it's saying like, okay, for 5 days, track your food. Be really honest. Don't try to change anything, which is like really hard for some people to do. Don't change anything. Track as you are and really look at that. And this amazing thing happens when people go, after the 5 days are done, they go and look back, they go, wow, I didn't realize how little of this I was eating or how much of this I was having. I just didn't realize. And that's where everything opens up and goes, oh, now I see exactly what my food is giving me or not giving me. And that's where we can start to go, okay, let's input this small thing that we can adding breakfast to your day. Let's input that first. And then that's where you start to make the change. Because if you're just trying to like say like, okay, I'm just gonna eat better. It's like that's so vague. But if we can be tracking it, if we can be using it as a tool to educate ourselves, to build knowledge, that builds confidence. So essentially, I call awareness is power, right? Like we want to use that awareness to our power, not to, break ourselves down or be like, oh, I'm not doing this right. It's like, how can I use that awareness to fuel me to then fuel my body, right? So it motivates us to be like, oh, there's some things I can work on here, but not from a judgmental point. It's like, how can we just learn more? Because that's the point. If we're unaware, we're uneducated. So it's about educating ourselves, learning, and taking that and using it to then change our lives, right? It's so cool.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you're like, I think awareness is power. I think that when we can finally see certain things, that is a very powerful moment in your life, and it cannot be understated. The thing that I have run into in the past, myself included, is that some people don't want to look.
Mm.
Some people will avoid it. They are afraid to see. They just don't want to know because it's almost like they hype it up in their head. They psych themselves out like, oh my God, this is going to be so terrible. And I don't believe that it's ever so terrible that you can't handle it. And I think that having that self-efficacy in this process is an incredibly powerful like tool in your toolbox. I do believe that once you can understand that awareness is power, nothing can get in your way. You want to know everything. You want to know as much as you possibly can about yourself. Because once you realize that if you know about it, you have power over it, oh, well, hell, now I can change whatever I want. Now I understand. And I think the other piece that I really want to touch on is the fact that you are tracking without judgment. That piece cannot go understated. The judgment that we have on ourselves, I think personally, is a habit that we've been conditioned into. You don't have to judge yourself. You don't have to. Nobody told you you had to, but you watched other people do it. You probably watched your mom do it. You probably watched your mom look in the mirror and judge herself about how she looked. You probably listened to your mom or your sisters or your aunts or whatever talk about how they didn't like their hair or their cheeks were too fat or like their arms were like floppy or something like this. And you internalized that that's how you were supposed to act. You were supposed to criticize yourself. This is how we are as humans.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. That judgment is the way that we're doing it is unnecessary. I feel as if we can use our discernment, not necessarily calling it judgment, if we can use our discernment properly, that's where we get more powerful. Because you know what? Maybe you don't like the fact that your arms are a little floppy. Maybe you don't like that. But does that mean you're a terrible person? Does that mean that you don't deserve to be healthier? Does that mean that you don't deserve to take up space at this point? No. And I think that's the difference between judgment and discernment.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
you get the power of like, oh, I don't like that. Well, guess what? You just looked at it and now you can change it. You have the power to change it. You are not doomed to floppy arms for the rest of your life if you don't want them.
Mm.
So using your discernment in these arenas can make you more powerful. I love that. I love that so much. So
Cool.
something that I really want to touch on because we're coming up on time here, but I want this for anybody who's listening, okay? What are some like quick and dirty, hard and fast rules that you give your people? Maybe not rules, maybe they're guidelines that people can take away today to improve this for themselves. What do you tell your clients are just like base level things, whether it's protein intake, whether it's, start small, whether it's like make sure you're getting so many steps or whatever it is, what can people take away today about their nourishment and how it can impact who they are and how they show up in their relationship?
Yeah, so good because we want some action items, right? That we can say like, okay, like I can start, right? So number one thing, protein every meal. And what does that look like? Like, there's, I mean, I think we have like a cheat sheet that we can send out to if
Okay.
anyone's but thinking about protein at every meal, even like get curious, Google like what are protein sources, right? Like starting to educate ourselves. So protein at every meal is going to start to increase your energy. If you have more energy, do all the other things, right? So like at every meal, take that opportunity to say like, how can I build a meal around my protein? Chicken, beef, eggs, those kinds of things, cheese. Those things are going to be, that's going to help you so much more. So that's one thing, protein every meal. And if you can, if you're having only 2 meals a day, add one extra meal in. Even if it's an extra snack, add more to your day in at least one meal or one snack. Because if you're finding that you have no energy, that's an easy way to just be like, okay, like if I'm not eating 3 times a day, how can I make that happen? Right? And it can be as simple as a snack. It's okay. Like we start small. When it comes to, giving back to ourselves in a gentle way, steps are a great option. If you find that if you're not tracking your steps or if you're not moving your body very often, like get outside for a 10-minute walk, like 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be an hour. It doesn't have to be like start with 10 And if you find that you're like 10 minutes is like nothing, like then you build from there. But if you start to think like I need to go for an hour walk every day and you're not doing that at all yet, then you need to really tailor it back to like what is manageable for me, what is something that I can actually accomplish. Because when we start to nail these small habits and we're doing them consistently over time, even though they feel small, that builds our confidence, which is what we want, right? We want to build our confidence. We want to gain our energy back. We want to be in our relationships, showing up. So I would say those three things are really key. So protein at every meal, having at least 3 meals a day, and then starting to move your body, even if it's in a gentle way, like 10 minutes a day, that's going to already help you to start feel more confident and show up for yourself in small ways, and that will just start to grow and grow and grow. So those would be my three things that I would suggest to start thinking about adding into your routine.
Amazing. Yes. And I'm just going to add in really quick as we wrap up here that the small things that we don't think are having an impact have what's called a compound effect. So if you look up, if you Google the compound effect, okay, you will see that small, consistent actions will start to double, triple, quadruple all the way up until you have this huge spike. Okay, literally the curve doesn't look like this and then like this. It looks like this. It's a gradual incline, and that compound effect is across the board in your life, okay? If you start making these tiny things, adding a snack to the day, building your meals around protein, getting outside for 10 minutes every day, those are small add-ins, totally doable, okay? Here's what happens when you start doing those things. Your confidence gains. Your body is now healthy. Your lymphatic system is getting the flush that it needs because your lymphatic system doesn't move unless you do. There is no pump. Okay. So once your lymphatic system is going, you're probably going to see less water retention up in your face. Okay. When you see less water retention or your body just feels better, you start to glow. When you start to glow, you have more energy. You want to show up better. You're going to be happier. How does this translate to your relationship? You're not going to be so quick to be nasty. You're not going to be judging yourself so much. And so when your partner says, "Oh, you look great today," you actually believe him. Okay. When your partner is attracted to you, you actually believe him. Maybe your libido spikes and you actually want to get in the bedroom instead of saying you got a headache or you're too tired. And all of a sudden you're not as tired anymore because you started adding more protein and more food. You started moving your body and gaining that energy, that kinetic energy that's just going to radiate. And your relationship skyrockets because you are now paying attention to yourself. And this isn't even half of it. Okay. These are just the little pieces, the communication issues that you think you guys have, which you probably do have, are going to plummet because of the way that you are showing up. You're going to be more patient. You're not going to think he's picking at you. Maybe you'll be a little bit more, what do I want to say? Like happier, but like joyful and fun, playful. Maybe you'll be more playful so that because you're not so tired, you're not so anxious with yourself, you're not so overwhelmed. These are all things that are directly connected to how much you nourish your body. And I don't think people are really thinking about that. I mean, what do you find that for yourself?
Totally. Like I found, well, even like if I've ever gone into a deficit where I'm like actively trying to lose weight, I've always known that like I'm miserable at that time. It's like, why am I doing that to myself? Just to be smaller? Like, and like looking at things of like, okay, like, why do I want to be smaller? Why is that the goal? It's like, you know what? I'm happy. Like, if I feel happy and good in my body, why is that not enough? So it's like, it's, you know, it's just such a wonderful feeling when you're like, yeah, you're like, man, I feel good. Like, and then like, yeah, it's like you just have this like different look on life because you're like, I actually feel good. And yeah, you're just showing up so much better for yourself and being like my partner, like I can be like cracking jokes instead of like being like on edge, right? Like you get on edge sometimes. It's like if we can manage that in a way that's like fueling our body, taking care of ourselves, like naturally there's going to be times where we're just like unable to handle some things. But like, that's normal. But if it's your constant, if that's your constant, then you do need to check in and say, what am I giving myself right now or not giving myself? Because I can't give, I can't feel good. I don't feel good, right? So like, yeah, it's such an amazing thing to start to have your constant be here, not here, right? So,
Yeah.
um,
Amazing. I love that. Okay. So if you guys are interested in talking to Coach Dani, that is amazing. I'm going to have her give you some information and let us know if there's anything, how we can contact you, if there's any freebies that you can give us, or anything else that you'd like us to know. What's that?
yeah, you can find me on Instagram, wellnesswithdani.s. That's my Instagram handle. And if you want to message me there, that's usually where I talk to everyone. I have lots of information for you on my Instagram. I'm also starting YouTube, so you can always find me there. Wellness with Dani is there too. But essentially, like, reach out, ask any questions. I do have a protein cheat sheet, so if you want to hit me up on Instagram, just DM me protein cheat sheet, and I'll send it to you. And that way you have some really good information in terms of like, where do I start? And if there's any questions at all and being like, hey, like this is my specific issue that I have, I can definitely walk you through it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Also, if you are looking for that cheat sheet, I'm going to put it in the show notes underneath in the description. So please don't let that stop you from reaching out to Coach Dani on Instagram because you absolutely need to. She is a fantastic nutrition coach and absolutely will be helping you not just with your relationship, but the nutrition behind it. Okay. So thank you so much, Coach Dani. I appreciate you being here and like we should definitely do this again.
Yeah, thanks, Danielle. So glad to be here. Such a good conversation and like happy to do this many times over.
Amazing. Thanks.
Awesome. Cool. Loved it.